This is not a prison, it's a hospital. These are not criminals, they are patients.
I'm found guilty for something I can't explain.
It's a global health crisis.
This contagious disease could literally bring a collapse of the health system.
Tuberculosis, doctors thought it was beaten, but new strains are almost impossible to treat.
To be in a place where people die almost every day, you think to yourself, am I going to be next?
The townships of Cape Town, South Africa. Dangerously poor, but vibrant and intense. People are living shoulder to shoulder here, perfect conditions for spreading tuberculosis. About 9 million people contract TB every year. This is Tubile, aka DJ Shack. He's 27 and lives some of the time with his girlfriend, Poliswa. But she's got TB. It kills 100,000 people in South Africa every year.
TB is everywhere. I think people are afraid of getting infected.
Tubile and Poliswa live in the Nyanga township. They have a 4-year-old daughter, Alita.
I've lived here all my life, really. I was born here, grew up here. I'm interested in becoming a nurse.
She wants to be a nurse. I'm hoping that can come through, you understand it. The most of all, I want that child to go to school.
They're a close-knit family. Poliswa probably caught TB from her mother, Hilda.
I was very sick, starting to cough, sweating at night, losing weight, losing appetite. I couldn't sleep nicely at night. I had a pain on my side. It was very painful. Then I went to the doctor.
Hilda lost her husband 2 years ago. Now she lives with her 3 daughters and 2 grandchildren. Hilda had been coughing for months. Finally, a doctor worked out why.
He said to me, now I must tell you, you got TB. How do you feel? I said, doctor, I feel much better. I'm very relieved because I didn't know what's wrong with me. Thank you, doctor. I'm doing this journey every morning. I'm taking a taxi from here to the suburbs because I'm working at the suburbs. I cannot stay at home because I'm the provider, I'm the breadwinner. I'm the only one who's working at my house, yes.
South Africa has the highest rate of TB infection in the world. It's the epicenter of a modern TB crisis. Hilda and her family are typical examples. This is no longer a disease of just the poorest of the poor. Hilda has been on treatment for a month, but it was 3 before she was diagnosed. Even if she had been vaccinated against TB, the effect of the BCG jab doesn't always last into adulthood. The implications are clear.
The first thing, what crept up my mind? Oh my God, it's me who gave Poliswa the TB. I blame me because I sleep with them. What can I do? My house is small.
Hilda must take 2 taxi journeys to get to work. Her treatment makes her less infectious. but it's quite possible that she passed the TB bacteria on before she started taking her drugs. Poliswa is on her way to the health clinic with her daughter Elita. After Hilda's diagnosis, the whole family were tested. When Poliswa got her results, her mother's worst fears were confirmed. She had TB. Today, she starts her treatment. She's aware of the disease, but isn't sure how you catch it.
I think it's normal for anyone to get it because it's everywhere, you know. You can get it from cold, or maybe when you're around a lot of people, maybe people are coughing and then you're sitting next to a person who's got it.
She's particularly concerned about Elita's health.
Yeah, it is worrying, especially for her because I think she's losing weight. Yeah, and she has no appetite.
In South Africa, TB has been declared a national emergency. 500,000 people contract it every year. 100,000 will die.
I'll explain to you about the TB and the treatment and what we do every day here.
Okay.
Poliswa's had TB before. She thinks her treatment will be straightforward.
If you had TB before, then your TB treatment will be for 8 months.
8 months?
Yes. The first 2 months, you will get streptomycin. Streptomycin is injection that you get every day, Monday to Friday.
For how long?
For 2 months. You must have 40 doses because streptomycin is stronger than the tablets because it's an extra something that you give for the TB bug to die.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'll only get the injections for 2 months, and then after 2 months I get the pills. Okay.
Within 72 hours.
Because Poliswa has TB, Elita must be tested too. It's standard for children under 5. A small amount of bacteria is injected under Elita's skin. The size of the reaction will show whether she's got TB or not. Now, they'll have to wait. The results take 4 days. Around the world, nearly 2 million people are killed by TB every year. It's particularly rife in South Africa because of HIV. 19% of the population are HIV positive. People whose immune system is already suppressed are easy prey. But now, there's so much TB around, everyone's at risk, HIV positive or not. "12-year-old Trevino is doing his chores, getting water for his family. He and his brothers are growing up without their mother. Their father, Ricardo, has been coping without her for nearly 2 years.
The hardest was to see her go, and after that, for me it was a struggle to do all these things. It's hard to do a woman's work when you come home at night. Maybe the kids were playing, the place are still dirty, and I have to do all that. But yes, it's a struggle, still it's a struggle.
But his wife Zelda isn't dead. She's detained here, in this hospital.
It's like a prison. It's like a prison because, you know, I'm found guilty for something I can't explain or whatever, you see.
The Jose Pearson Hospital is now Zelda's home. She was sent here when she developed a type of TB that's resistant to many drugs, multi-drug resistant or MDR TB. She was isolated to protect the public. It was 2 days before Christmas.
The hardest part for me going through these things is being away from my children. I'm losing out on so much of their life being inside of this place.
Very few patients with drug-resistant TB get better, so Zelda may never be able to go home. She understands why she's here, but it doesn't make staying any easier.
If I knew it would have been like this, I never would have come to this place, being away from my children for such a long time. How can you live a life like that?
Her husband, Ricardo, will never forget the day she had to leave.
I was sitting in that chair, crying. I was crying and I don't know what further to expect.
With 1 person in every 100 catching TB, the only way to stop the crisis is to halt the spread. That's why this team is going out into the townships of Cape Town to try and persuade people who might have TB to come forward. They're the Enhanced Case Finding Team from the Desmond Tutu TB Centre. It's estimated that 30% of people with TB aren't diagnosed, so it's vital they find them as soon as possible.
Actually, we are here today to call the people to come and get tested for TB because TB rate is very high. So now we're trying to reduce it. Then we explain to them that TB is very contagious. We explain to them because we have to educate them. And then after that, we can encourage them to get tested. The message that we have to bring to them is that TB is curable.
TB is generally curable, but the key is finding people before they infect others and getting them to understand the disease. In Nyanga, they're doing this through role play. Styx is playing a man with TB, and Lumka, a concerned neighbor. TB is an airborne bacteria. When someone who's infected sneezes or coughs, the bacteria are released in tiny particles called droplet nuclei. If Lumka inhaled a lot of these droplets, the bacteria would enter her body too. Some of the smaller droplets could travel down her throat, into her lungs, and end up in the small air sacs of the lungs, the alveoli. Here, the bacteria can grow and spread. The TB bacteria destroys the lung tissue.
Give us sputum.
Back at the health clinic, Poliswa is about to start her treatment.
When I inject you, you tell me you change your bumps every day. You're gonna tell me I'm comfortable on this side, I'm comfortable on this side, all right?
The treatment for TB has barely changed in nearly half a century.
Right now, we're desperately waiting for new drugs to come along, but these drugs haven't yet reached the stage where we can give them to patients.
The existing drugs can have unpleasant side effects.
If ever you are having a problem with the ears, because the side effect of streptomycin, you can become deaf. Ne? Yes, but it's not dangerous, but just tell us in order that we can refer you to the audiologist, all right?
Injections every day, as well as all of the pills, makes this regime tough to follow.
The problem is that the TB treatment is not an easy treatment, so people, they get bored for taking their treatment every day because these are very big tablets. it's easily for them to default. So that is why they must be monitored at the clinic.
This strategy of watching patients swallow their pills is to make sure they take all their drugs. It's practiced around the world and it's meant to help, but often patients just don't turn up.
It is frustrating, but we cannot give up. That is why we must have health education every day, an ongoing process every day to educate people about TB.
I just expected just to go to the clinic, get my pills and go home. But I have to get the injections every day until I finish my treatment. And I thought it was going to be only for 6 months, because it usually is. And now she's telling me that I have to take it for like 8 months. So it's going to be hard, yeah.
Lack of patient compliance is one of the biggest problems in the battle against TB. It's had grave consequences.
The best example, perhaps, is the person that is the provider for a family. Now this person feels ill and can't go to work. Goes to the clinic, is diagnosed with TB, and takes the drugs. It takes about a month or so until people start feeling really better, and they don't come back to the clinic. We doctors know that if you don't take the drugs for 6 months, you're very likely to relapse with a much worse strain of TB, potentially a multi-drug resistant TB. Because they feel so well, they go back to work and they think, chapter's closed, I'm cool.
The enhanced case finding team are still in Nyanga, encouraging people to come forward for a test. Tubile, Policewa's boyfriend, wants to find out more about TB.
Hello, Buti. What do you know about TB?
Nothing much. Yeah, nothing. I'm just worried that I might have, because I'm around people who does have the TB.
You're worried that you might have?
Yeah.
Tell me, who has TB in your family?
It's my girlfriend.
It's your girlfriend?
Yeah. And her mother also.
And her mother also?
Yeah.
No, it's not a bad thing. TB is curable as long as you take your treatment. Okay.
Lumke gives him a jar. He needs to cough up some sputum to be sent to the lab for testing. But it's not always as easy as it sounds.
I'm really scared, you know. I'm really scared. Because the way I see people outside with TB, you know, and I don't want to become one of them. So I'm not sure if I do have the TB, what's going to happen next, you know.
Tubile will have to wait at least 48 hours before he finds out. Protecting the health of the public has become the main concern in the battle against the new drug-resistant strains of TB. That's why these drug-resistant sufferers are being kept virtual prisoners here at the Jose Pearson Hospital in Port Elizabeth, even if the cost is their own personal freedom.
This TB hospital is a total different ballgame to normal hospital. Here we die like flies. Once us as MDR, multi-resistant, have finished our treatment and the treatment's not working, then we are sent next door to Sunshine. There, you've got a very slim chance of getting out.
Zelda is in the Sunshine Ward. She was moved here when her TB got worse. The bacteria had become resistant to almost every drug available. She was now infected with a recently discovered strain, extreme drug resistant, or XDR TB. When she came here a year and a half ago, there were 10 patients. 7 have died. Only one XDR TB patient has ever left here cured.
XDR is more dangerous than the MDR. And that's the reason why they feel that we must be isolated like we are here. People were very, very scared to get near to us and stuff like that. And that was heartbreaking. to be in a place where people die almost every day, like, you know, and you get so anxious because you think to yourself, am I going to be next and stuff like that? And it was very frightening. Really, it's very frightening to be in a situation like that.
Because drug-resistant TB is so hard to treat, doctors like Bungani Lujabi believe there's only one way to handle this health crisis.
Policy is that all patients need to be hospitalized until they have been rendered non-infectious, which simply means that they are not supposed to leave because this kind of TB, I'm sure you're already aware, is highly contagious.
XDR TB is on the increase. In 2006, there was just one case at this hospital. Since then, there have been over 360. The patients must stay until their sputum tests negative for TB.
The question of isolation or quarantine is an international thing. It's not a new thing. It's a known practice with infectious conditions that are dangerous to society. But now with TB, we're dealing with a completely different scenario where the patient may have a very dangerous strain of TB, yet they can be as fresh as you and me, and you may never be able to detect them or pick them up. Those are patients that have been hospitalized purely for the sake of isolation and of prevention of spread.
Zelda finds this endless incarceration almost unbearable.
I would have understood if I was now really like sick, but for me to be up and about and whatever, why must I be in a place like this?
That's why, despite the risks to her family's health, she decided to break out just before Christmas in 2007.
When she escaped from Joseph Pearson Hospital, she phoned me. I asked her why out. I'm going home to be with my children for Christmas. That's what she said. And the children were very happy to see her. And the very next day, the day before Christmas, that day was a horrible day. There was two guys coming with papers and saying, right, Zelda must go back. And I say, no, not over my dead body, she's going back. An hour later, they were here with a police van.
I told them, yeah, and you can rather shoot me than take me back to the Joseph Pearson.
Without Zelda, how can I say, without Zelda, this family is nothing.
In part 2, a very different and controversial way of treating drug-resistant patients, not in a hospital, but in their own communities. And father and daughter find out if they too are infected with TB. Tuberculosis infects a new person every second. In South Africa, it's been declared a national emergency. The epidemic is particularly serious here in KwaZulu-Natal. One small town has found itself at the heart of this emerging catastrophe, Tegela Ferry. The Church of Scotland Hospital was the source of a new TB epidemic. Out of the crisis emerged a local hero. Dr. Tony Mole. He's spent over 20 years caring for this community. He's adored as the healer who stood by them when AIDS first struck. This is an annual knees-up for volunteers who do home visits. They're celebrating life in traditional Zulu style. When Dr. Moll arrived in 1986, the TB situation was very different.
And our policy then was to admit TB patients for the full duration of their TB treatment, which was a full 6 months. They would be having treatment under observation every day and walk out well nourished at the end of 6 months of hospital food and go back home cured. So I can say that probably in the early 90s we really nearly had TB under control, and we felt on top of tuberculosis, in fact.
But the spread of HIV fatally undermined this work.
You started having HIV positive patients, now damaged immune systems, and as the HIV epidemic progressed, TB also progressed together along with it. Okay, good. Okay, keep that adjust, eh? Yeah. So that by 2004, 2005, there was no chance that we could admit every TB patient for 6 months. We were down to 2 months, and then we had to displace patients for new ones coming in, to where we are right now, where the ambulant patients who are walking and talking and okay to go home, they get their TB treatment, they go home the same day. Okay.
12-year-old Nawazi is a typical example. She is HIV positive and has TB for the second time.
Okay, Pefamola.
She's being treated as an outpatient and is responding well.
Okay.
KwaZulu-Natal has the highest HIV infection rate in the whole of South Africa. Thousands have died. In 2005, Dr. Moll and his colleagues were seeing more and more patients with both HIV and TB. A few weren't getting better, whatever they tried. Dr. Moll decided to send samples to a lab to find out why.
About 2 months, 3 months later, I got a phone call from the laboratory in Durban, and it was the microbiologist on the phone, and she said to me, you know, doctor, out of those 45 samples that you've sent in, 10 of them have resistance to every single TB drug that we've tested against. I can just remember the energy just draining through my body.
Dr. Moll had discovered an outbreak of a totally new strain of TB, resistant to almost every kind of drug, XDR-TB. Initially, there was little reaction from the medical community. Then the press got hold of the story.
Front page newspaper headlines was killer TB strikes, death in Tugela Ferry and all this kind of thing. And one of the reporters came along to do an interview, and they said, well, you know, I drove through the village, but it looked okay. I was kind of expecting bodies on the side of the road. And it wasn't at all like that. It was just this quiet, silent epidemic taking place in the hospital. It did strike fear into us doctors working in the hospital. Patients would come in front of you, and then you'd open up their files and you'd see, well, query MDR, query XDR, and you'd kind of move your chair back a little bit and make sure that you're wearing the mask. The implications were so horrific.
The outbreak was first reported in 2005. XDR-TB has now become much more common, and not only in South Africa.
This was basically XDR-TB emerging spontaneously in different places of the world, just because we were using the same TB drugs to treat the same disease all over the world, and there were the same type of deficiencies in the TB programs across the globe. More than 45 countries have identified XDR-TB.
Here in KwaZulu-Natal, they're treating drug-resistant TB patients at home. They simply can't isolate them all.
what I'm doing today is I'm going to visit my clients in the community who are on TB treatments.
Wensa Mshali is a nurse. He goes out to treat patients with MDR and even some with the virtually untreatable XDR TB.
There isn't room for them in the hospital because there are many, but their families are told that they should be isolated to a certain extent. They should sleep alone and they shouldn't share a blanket.
This home-based treatment is controversial, but with almost 1/3 of the entire country's TB patients here, this is the only way KwaZulu-Natal can cope with the huge demand on its medical resources.
The first person we're on our way to see is a 38-year-old lady. She isn't that well, but she is getting there.
Saliwe Malinga has walked 4 kilometers for her injection. She'll do this every day for 4 months.
Okay. What she's saying is she's feeling much better. But you see, like these drugs have got certain side effects. So she's experiencing side effects. Her feet are painful.
Wensa is one of 12 nurses who go out to inject patients. At the moment, they're treating 80 people. Most have MDR TB, but as many as 10 have the extreme drug-resistant form. It's risky work.
They are very infectious. So what I do is I always have a mask handy, but I prefer to work with them on an open area rather than inside their houses because I think there's more ventilation outside than in their houses.
This is why Wensa is working alone. It's hard to find nurses who do this dangerous job.
Yeah, really. Sometimes, you know, I am frightened sometimes. But man, I have to work and I have to help these people. I can't be afraid all the time because if I get that fright, then I won't work the way I want to work. I won't help them the way I want to help them.
This method of treatment is working. Transmission rates are very low here. It may be due to a better environment and social conditions. People live in small family groups, their huts set apart. They are outside a lot in the fresh air and sunlight where the bacteria can't survive for long. And Dr. Moll has noticed another benefit that also helps recovery.
Patient's at home, he's with his family, he's getting his injection given to him right at home. I think we'll see a shift here where patients certainly are much happier at home getting their medication.
Zelda longs to be treated at home, but it's not an option for her. The Eastern Cape has decided to put public health before individual freedom. Zelda must go and get her pills just as she's been doing every day for nearly 2 years, but she finds it a struggle.
Then you say, I'm not drinking this because this and this and this is the side effects of that.
Yeah, but I didn't eat nothing.
Kom, ons drink dieselfde pil.
But I didn't eat nothing.
Kom saam, kom wys dat se pil drink jy. Kom in.
Just go and drink your tablets.
Oh, drink my tablets.
You drink it.
No, man.
Now, for the treatment of TB, we need a single pill that you can take once and then you're cured. Well, that's not going to happen probably in my lifetime. So what we do currently is that we try to develop new drugs, build them into current regimens, and reduce treatment to a duration that is more acceptable for the patients.
Zelda? Your surname, Zelda?
Yeah, I'm Zelda.
The drugs that Zelda has to take can have toxic side effects. They've already damaged her hearing, and with little improvement in her condition, she's starting to question her treatment.
But it makes me feel sick, means
Make you feel sick? Did you tell that doctor?
I wonder if I can cut it, you know, it was 400 milligrams. If I can at least take 2 to see.
Take 2 in the morning, then take 2 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Just try it.
Just to see how
yeah.
it's
yeah,
working.
yeah. So can I break it?
Yeah.
Take a look.
Okay, I'll take it off soon.
So, baby.
Thank you.
Zelda may even be deciding for herself how, or even if, she takes her medication.
To take it intermittently would be the worst case. And taking it intermittently is actually what we call poor compliance, and that is something we never recommend. The danger in this is that one allows the bacteria to develop resistance to that substance, and then one loses that substance from the arsenal of drugs we have available.
When I drink these tablets alone, I don't feel anything. I feel fine and whatever. You see, only these tablets. But when I eat these things, what you call this thing? Moxifloxacin.
Moxiflox.
Oh, it's terrible. This one is really, oh, I'm not gonna, no. I'm going to try it in a half a form to see now what it's going to happen. Oh, Father.
Well, if you are an XDR patient, you've gone through a lot of TB treatment already.
And all of it went down now. And now I must just wait for the side effect of the moxifloxacin. But it's not nice.
So I think these are really, really tough situations for the patients and the hospitals as well that have to care for them. Because there, with XDR TB, one really has to make sure that these patients do not infect others, because there is very little left to treat these people that are infected with that.
They say I might give it to my children. Yeah, I understand that. That's why I'm staying here. But, you know, to stay inside this place, no? And seeing no improvement in your health makes you think, no, what's the use?
Poliswa and Tubile are more worried about their daughter's health than their own. They're on their way to get Alita's test results. They're right to be worried. Around the world, more than 100,000 children die of TB every year. Is Alita positive or not?
The nurse said if it turns red, so that means it's positive. But I don't know. I think it's positive because it has a reddish color.
Poliswa thinks the red spot on Alita's arm has got bigger.
So it's non-reactive, it's negative for prophylaxis.
Yeah.
Gonna give you prophylaxis.
Yes.
It's good news.
Okay, so we got the results. It's negative.
Serious?
Yeah, but they're gonna give her some pills to prevent her from getting infected. Yeah, so just waiting for the nurse.
She's safe, you know, and we're gonna make sure that she will stay safe.
With Alita in the clear, Tubile is now thinking about his condition. He's still waiting for his results.
It's like it's working on my mind. Like I'm keep on thinking about it, like each and every minute. But they're taking too long. I don't know why. I gave them. It was a cough last week. Supposed to be back by now, you know. But I'm still waiting. Yeah. So it is in my mind.
Even though Alita tested negative, she has to take antibiotics for the next 3 months to prevent future infection.
Imnandi ayikhombi. Injani? Injani? Good.
When Ricardo has enough money for petrol, he takes the children to see Zelda.
It's hurtful. It's hurtful to be away from them, like my kids like that. I've never been away from them for so long as I am now. Never, ever. And Rosario's missing out, and so I don't know. I can't hug him, I can't, you know. play with him, stuff that I used to do with the others when they were small.
Because of the danger of infection, Ricardo's left the children at the entrance. But he's not worried about the risk. He's just pleased to be with his wife again. Tubile's results are ready. He's afraid he has TB, but he wants to know for sure.
Hi guys. Hello. All right?
I'm fine, yourself?
Okay. How are you feeling today?
Nervous.
All right. You're here to check your results?
Yeah.
Okay. I have good news for you.
Okay.
Your results are negative.
Oh, serious?
Very serious.
It's wonderful. Yeah, those are really good news.
But we have to give you another sputum jar so that you can cough in it.
You already gave me 2. Why do you have to get the 3rd one?
50% of people who have TB, sometimes it's not been seen in sputums. So we have to give you another one just to make sure. We will see it because now we are going to cough culture. Okay. Culture will take us 6 weeks.
This will be the definitive test. His sputum will be placed on a growth medium and grown in a lab.
Okay, thank you, Sisi.
Okay.
I was surprised when they told me that I'm negative because I've been having the symptoms of this thing, you understand? But I'm still waiting for the other one. They told me that's going to take 6 weeks. That means I've got 6 weeks to worry.
Until new drugs and better tests are developed, TB will continue to kill hundreds of thousands. And if the new drug-resistant strains spread, the situation could get much worse.
NDR and XDR, if not controlled, are almost like biological warfare against the population.
What this means for patients like Zelda is a prison sentence with no end. It makes the few moments she has with her children even more precious.
En je weet, als ik bij jullie en ik is altijd lief veel en ik ga altijd denken en ik ga altijd veel op het verstaan. En dat is hoe jullie niet aandrukken. Je weet, zeg maar, zo plompen. Jij is mij plompen, Jan. Je mij plompen? Is je nog lief voor me? Is je lief voor me, Zara? Ik is lief voor je ook, hoor.
Like this.
Cool. Nee. Bye-bye, Zaza. Bye, boy. Bye, boy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, baby. Bye, boy.
Zelda will stay here until she's tested negative for TB. She's afraid that day may never come.
To be honest, for now, I have no future because I have no time when I'll be out of Joe's business. For now, I have no future.
Next time on Survival, pneumonia. It kills more young children than anything else.
My baby was gone.
It's the illness of poverty. Malnutrition and bad living conditions allow it to spread.
There needs to be some interventions.
But new initiatives in the Philippines could help stop this global killer.